Wish I'd done it in undergrad. Even more wish I'd done it during my PhD. I'm now in the last 6 months and I've just started to really get into this. Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about some things that you can do during the summer to get ready for a new year of university or college, you know, wherever you're based, whatever it's called. So I'm often asked, what can I do to prepare myself for starting an undergraduate degree, a master's degree or a PhD? Like, is there anything I can do before the year starts to get myself, you know, like in the zone? And I have, you know, a few suggestions which I think can really help you. So I have done an undergraduate degree and a PhD, and in the summers before both of them I did various things to prepare myself, more so for the PhD than the undergrad, but I'll talk you through what I did and some of the things I wish I had done now that I've done 2 degrees, almost done 2 degrees. Even if you're not going to be a new student this year, you can also use these tips if you're just going into a new year of your university course to have the best next year. I am a neuroscience student, I have been since my undergrad, and so this video applies to both arts, science, whatever degree you're doing, but my experience is with doing a science degree, but it should all be applicable. And just a side note before I kick off with some of these tips, if you are a uni student or a PhD student or a master's student, I have loads of tips and hopefully this will help you be more organised, more focused and in a better mindset to tackle your degree. So the first thing that I really recommend doing in the time before starting a degree is to read a relevant review. So a review is a summary of a specific area of research which has been put together by experts in the field. Now for my PhD, I did do this beforehand. I picked several reviews around the topics that I was going to be studying and really dove into them. For undergrad, I didn't do this at all, and I really wish I had, because one of the biggest challenges during my undergrad was learning how to read scientific papers. This is because they're long, they are very technical, and you are having to literally look up every other word, especially with science and science reviews. All the jargon in there, you know, each word sometimes needs like a page for its own definition, so you're constantly like having to check out and go onto Google and find things, and it really breaks the flow of reading the paper. And what I developed over my undergrad was a real resistance to reading scientific papers, because, you know, you come from a place of being really comfortable doing your work to being quite uncomfortable. So I personally really struggled with that. So I would recommend, if you are going into an undergrad or a PhD or a master's, to read reviews. It is daunting to read your first review, so pick something you're interested in, print it off, get your highlighters, get your pens, and just get familiar with reading this type of work. Another thing which I think was really vital for me was setting up my schedule. So for an undergraduate degree, you normally have set hours, like contact hours for lectures, seminars, labs, etc. And sometimes you don't get this timetable until the last minute. I think I got mine a week before I started maybe. But as soon as you have that, I would take that information and put it into your own calendar. I use Google Calendars for mine, but just block out all of the lectures that you can for the next few weeks or the term. With a PhD, it's a little bit different because you normally, well, in the UK, we don't have classes. I know in the US you do, so you can do this for your classes. But for a UK PhD, it's normally very much your own time. So for a PhD, I would just block out Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And once you've got in that scheduled time, the time that you know you have to be in the lab or in lectures, around that time, add in when you are going to do your extra work. Physically scheduling in the work that isn't scheduled for you makes you more likely to do it. It makes it seem more official, and especially if you're doing it beforehand, you will probably be more open to doing this work. With an undergraduate degree, I think it's really important to recap the lectures that you've done that week, and I would schedule that time in. With my undergrad, I know a lot of my lectures were sort of in the morning, like 9 till 1-ish, and then the afternoon I would have as like free, like a blank space. I never scheduled my time in, so I'd be like, oh yeah, this afternoon I'll go over that biochemistry lecture, and then I'd sort of pull up to the library, rock around, procrastinate, not do anything, and then be like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I may as well go home and watch TV. But if you actually say, okay, the biochemistry lecture from Monday, Tuesday afternoon, I've scheduled in an hour to go over those notes and make them on my own. That is what you need to do, and I would say if you set that scheduling system up from as soon as you can, so as soon as you get your physical schedule for uni, I would start adding in the extra times that you're going to work. And like I said, with a PhD, it's a little bit different. Just schedule 9 to 5 in now, and then you can adapt this as you go along and then what the expectations are of you. The next thing that I wish I'd been a bit more firm on before I started uni or started any year of uni is how you're going to take notes. And this is particularly for people who are doing lectures and courses where you have exams or essays. How you take notes is so vital for your revision period. I personally would change how I do this every single year. I do learn better when I'm physically writing. I do take things in better. So in my first year, that's what I did. I physically wrote. But I ended up writing every single thing the lecturer was saying, and I really didn't need to do that. I would say personally, I think the best practice is to either print off the lecture slides, you normally get them before, or take your laptop in with the lecture slides on them and annotate the slides. Because then what you're doing is you're not having to write down every single thing you hear, you're just adding in the extra bits on the slides. And then when you have your study time for that lecture, which I spoke about in the point before, that's when you can write these things up. So then you have like almost your own mini textbook when it comes to your revision period. And preferably for me, I would say doing this electronically is beneficial, because then during your revision, when you look at, you know, research papers and other bits of information, you can just slot it in the appropriate place in your notes that you've already made. With writing it out on paper, I think this is also a massive benefit when you're revising. I'll do a whole other video on revision, but I think for storing your notes from, you know, your first lecture all the way through to your exams, doing this electronically is, in my opinion, a bit more useful when it comes to doing your revision. Something else which I think is really important to do before you set foot at your university campus or on your new year or your new degree is to make a pact with yourself about going to all your contact hours. Especially if you're a new student, you're really not used to having this much freedom. I found it at first really exciting, but then got completely overwhelmed by having the freedom of time and also the independence to make your own decisions as to whether you go to things or not. I think at school we all dream about the day where we can be like, oh, there's maths today, I'm not going to go. But at uni, you actually can just not go. And you know, there are a lot of classes on my degree anyway for science where they're quite big lectures, they don't take a register, so you can get away with actually not turning up to the lesson. And although some of them are recorded and you can watch them after the fact, I would say that it is just such a valuable learning tool to go to the lecture. And even if you don't feel like going that day and you're tired, just drag yourself there and sit and listen. You don't even have to take notes. I feel like the presence of being in a lecture or a class just allows you to really absorb the information better. Personally, I skipped so many classes during my second and third year of undergrad, and my exam results really showed that. When I actually made an effort in my first and fourth year of my degree, my grades were so much better because I was dedicated, and going to lectures shows your dedication to the subject as well. So you can make a pact with yourself by saying, if I go to all my lectures this term, I will get myself, you know, a treat. Just some sort of incentive to make sure you go to those classes, because even if you're motivated at first, this will probably wane off and it will be very easy to say, I'm going to stay in bed instead of going to my 9 a.m. An important part of your degree is having things to do that do not revolve around studying. So finding a downtime hobby is essential for maintaining a good work-life balance whilst you're doing a degree. You may already have something that you love to do now, something that's really established, and I would say try to continue this whilst you're doing your degree. So you can look at your university societies and see if there are things like, if you do hockey or something now, go and look and see if your university has a hockey society, and make sure you go and sign up to that society on your first week there on Freshers Week. If you're a returning student, second, third year, and you have a hobby but you've been a bit too afraid to go and sign up for it, I could not recommend enough doing this, because I didn't do any societies during my first year, even though throughout my entire school life since the age of 3 I've been going to dance classes. It was such a huge part of my life, and I think I really took for granted how much having that escape helped with my learning as well. And like I said, didn't do any in my first year because I was too scared that I wouldn't be good enough. And then in my second year I made a pact with myself of, you're gonna do at least one society this year, and I ended up doing dance, musical theatre and drama. It gave me a whole other level to my university experience. I made the most amazing friends doing it. I committed so much time to doing it, and I also got an award from the university for my commitment commitment to the art. So I came out of my undergrad with a degree in neuroscience and a special award from UCL, my university, to say this person has given absolutely exemplary commitment to art. It just is really nice on your CV to show that even though I did well academically, I also did something else really well as well. I said well so many times there. If you don't already have a hobby, this is also fine. Just think of something that you'd like to do a few times a week that isn't related to your work. So now I don't do musical theatre anymore because it was a big time commitment. Instead, I go to the gym and I make sure I go at least 3 weekdays a week. I make sure that is always in my schedule to go and take that time for me. And it really, really helps just to have some sort of escapism from the work that you have to do day in, day out. Now, this next point is something that's only occurred to me very recently. Wish I'd done it in undergrad. Even more, wish I'd done it during my PhD. I'm now in the last 6 months and I've just started to really get into this. But do some mindset work. Do some mindset work. Now, if you don't know about mindsets and different things, I did a video on this explaining the difference between being in a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And one allows you to approach failure with a more open perspective, which is the growth mindset. And this makes you more accepting of some stumbling roadblocks, which you will inevitably face during your time at university. Realistically, you are going to be very shocked when you start your degree. I was honestly really like taken aback because you go from your school where you know your level amongst your peers, and at school there is a lot more diversity in what people are good at and how people, you know, do in certain subjects. When you go to university, everyone who's got onto your course has the same grades as you and everyone is at your level. There isn't this, you know, tiered distinction as much as when you're at school. I found this completely overwhelming and it led to me comparing myself to others all the time and gave me major imposter syndrome. I'm going to do a video on imposter syndrome and how you can deal with that in the next few weeks. But imposter syndrome really is thinking that you are a fraud and you are not meant to be where you are. And through some stroke of luck, you've ended up at this really great university on a really great course, but you can't let the mask slip that you're really not meant to be there. This is something that I dealt with throughout my whole undergrad degree and throughout my PhD. I'm now just starting to come to a good routine with managing these types of thoughts. And this includes setting up a good morning routine, journaling, meditating, exercising, positive self-talk. I'm going to make videos on all of these things, so subscribe to make sure you catch them. But really just acknowledging now that things are going to be hard. You know, people are going to be as good as you at the subject you're doing, and that is okay, that is normal. It's the way you think about that situation which will determine your reaction to that situation. You are going to have to put in more effort, and that should be something that isn't seen as a sign you're not good enough. That is not what it is. It's just that the work is much harder. So seeing the effort as a sign that you're working hard rather than I now have to try and this means I'm not good at my subject. That is something you really want to avoid. So mindset work is something now that I could not recommend enough. And I'll leave some resources in the description below. The last thing I would say that you should do before you start your degree or your new year at uni or your PhD is to enjoy your summer. Enjoy the time you have now to relax and have fun doing what you love. Because I think we're also eager to start and we want to like put pressure on ourselves, like what work can I be doing now? What is so important for you is to have time for yourself and to not be doing any work, because that allows your brain to recharge. University is amazing. You will have a great time, but you will have a lot of responsibilities. Trust me, a couple of months in, you'll be like, I wish I'd done this in my summer instead of worrying about work or doing loads of work. I think it is just super important to relax now, enjoy the time you have before you go for your degree, and make sure you're fresh for when you start uni, because you're going to have an amazing time. So those are my tips. I hope they were helpful for you. I will be making more videos sharing on obstacles and things that you come up against during a degree, as well as more organisation tips to make sure that your schedule is tip top and you are able to form a really good routine. So make sure you subscribe to catch those things, and also for all things about the brain, because that is my area of expertise and I love the brain. Thank you for watching. If you ever have any questions for me, you can catch me on social media or you can comment below on the video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Catch you next time.